What's up, guys? My name's Nick.
My name's Nathan.
And this is Full Throttle Cars. Today, we are talking about the future of the automotive industry, and a very interesting future it is, and a very interesting present. We are both engineers. I'm a mechanical engineer. Nathan is an electrical engineer. I recently graduated. Nathan, if you want to give him a slight bit of your background.
Yeah, I'm a third-year electrical engineering student, actually at Akron right now, and I'm taking classes currently on like electric motors. So that will give you a little bit of a hint as to what I'm going to talk about in this video.
So, very interesting insights coming up, so be sure to stick around. And with that said, we'll jump right into it.
All right, so there are just so many different ways that the automotive industry could go right now. And one thing is pretty obvious is that we cannot stay on oil forever. I mean, it's just not sustainable. We're not going to be able to do it. We're going to run out, and that's the least of our concerns right now. So there is electric, there is hydrogen, there is potentially alternative fuels, and those are the big three that I really think of. And right now, it looks as though we are headed in a very electric direction. Just a lot of the car manufacturers have just announced that they are putting a lot of R&D into the electric automotive industry.
Building on this, the future definitely looks electric, especially here in the near future. That's where governments are giving incentives, and that's where companies are putting their money. Now, I don't think in the very near future, within 10 years, it's going to be a complete phase out of internal combustion engines. I don't even think companies are looking to be a completely electric fleet until at the earliest 2035, 2040, somewhere in there. Now, some countries and some states are pushing for higher and faster mandates on when they want electric vehicles to be the only thing selling in their state or in their country. But again, I don't see that being a complete phase out anytime in the near future.
Yeah, and so I think that there are a couple big reasons as to why we are going electric in at least the immediate future, as opposed to like hydrogen or alternative fuel or whatever else might be out there. And I think one of the biggest reasons is that we have had research and development of electric vehicles for a long time. I mean, look at our hybrid vehicles.
I mean, something like the Toyota Prius, that's what everybody thinks of. If you think of a hybrid vehicle, the Toyota Prius is going to be one of the first that comes to mind. Now, the Toyota Prius has been actually in production for over 20 years. I believe came out in the late 1990s, whether that was in Japan. I don't know when that came to the US, but again, somewhere in the late 1990s, which would be almost 25 years now that the hybrid electric vehicle has been popular. I mean, really, once the Prius came out, it was a pretty popular vehicle, and especially in the past few years, in the mid-2000s, mid-2010s, they really became popular, and they sell very well. And again, the technology has been there for hybrid vehicles and electrification.
Yeah, and just kind of going into that a little bit, and Toyota making like a publicly accessible electric car and making that hybrid, I think that was very important because it gave kind of everybody an economic incentive. Getting 50 miles to the gallon is something that everybody wants a piece of, especially if you are driving a lot and you don't want to spend a bunch of money on gas. And so just kind of launching into that a little bit more is, at least in the near future, electric vehicles seem to be a lot cheaper to run than other things like alternative fuels or hydrogen. I think hydrogen at best would be double the cost of gas right now.
I mean, yeah, that is one of the biggest issues with hydrogen. It's hard to get hydrogen fuel. First off, it takes a lot of energy to produce it and to get it to a spot where you can put it into an engine in a car and make it run. It takes a lot to store the hydrogen. It is expensive. It is very expensive, and even there are hydrogen cars on the road right now, but those hydrogen cars are so few and far between, because where is a hydrogen filling station? If you could tell me where a hydrogen filling station is, I would be very impressed, because I think there are only a handful throughout the country. I think mostly in California, and I think some in Texas as well. But other than there is nowhere you can fill a hydrogen car, and I just do not see hydrogen being an affordable option anytime in the near future. I mean, and that's why I think that we're pushing so much into EVs. Now, you want to say, of course, an EV is still running off the grid, and the grid is running off of coal or off of natural gas or whatever non-renewable, non-green source of energy. And that is certainly true. But that's also the push, is to make the grid more renewable. Get more solar, get more wind, hydropower, and nuclear power. If you don't know a whole lot about nuclear power is completely clean. Now, there's a lot of concerns about nuclear energy from people that don't know a whole lot about it. You think nuclear, you think of a nuclear bomb, or you think of radiation, but nuclear energy is actually very safe and very controlled. Those are some of the most safe energy plants, I think, that there are. And if you could convert more of the grid to those renewable energies or to nuclear energy, then that would be a great way to clean up the grid and make the energy going into your car a lot cleaner.
Yeah, and then moving away from hydrogen and talking about alternative fuels, if I'm not mistaken, those are even worse than hydrogen and how much those things cost to produce right now. That's not to say in the distant future that chemists might find a way to make them extremely cheap and even use them with the internal combustion engine that we have already put loads of research into. But right now, it just doesn't seem like an option.
Building on what Nathan was saying with alternative fuels, Porsche is actually developing synthetic fuels. They are working at a plant down in Chile. Donut Media actually went down there recently and made a video down there testing out this fuel in a Porsche Panamera. They actually were able to get basically a carbon neutral fuel, which again is not completely clean, but it is carbon neutral. It's not putting any more carbon into the air and is taking some of that carbon out of the air, I believe, to actually put towards this fuel, making it carbon neutral and reasonably clean. Now, this is hopefully definitely not a long-term solution for a complete replacement to gasoline as we know it today, but hopefully could be cheap enough in the future to where an enthusiast who wants to drive an internal combustion car every now and again or on the weekend or go out and have some fun in an internal combustion engine car can do so and have that option. So not every car is electric on the road. Not every old car is just completely gone. And hopefully enthusiast-based cars like the 911 can continue on with an internal combustion engine. So this is just a little bit of hope for the future for some of those enthusiasts who are still really holding on to having an internal combustion engine vehicle.
Continuing on the discussion of enthusiast cars going to the electric, but then still wanting to have a gas engine. I mean, at least in the near future for exotic cars, I think we're going to see a lot, and I mean like a lot of hybrids coming into play. I mean, the Corvette E-Ray, that is such a cool piece of engineering where they're actually using the hybrid capabilities to make something that is insanely powerful and not all that expensive. I mean, yeah, it's still an expensive vehicle, but it is much less than something like a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Also, with fully electric enthusiast cars, I feel like there is a ton of room to grow in that area and just the performance capabilities of an electric motor. I don't know how much you guys know about electric motors, but I'm an electrical engineering student, and one of the things that you learn is that your torque is instantly accessible within your electric motor. So your motor doesn't have to be spinning quickly for you to have a bunch of torque and a bunch of acceleration coming out of it quickly, you know, whenever you compare it to like an internal combustion engine. So whenever we see a car like the Rimac Nevera come out with just crazy acceleration and top speed and, you know, like it's 0 to 60 to 0, 0 to 100 to 0. Those things are just really cool to me. And I just hope that we continue to put a lot of research and just really expand the capabilities of electric cars.
So building on what Nathan said with the performance electric and hybrid electric vehicles, that electric motor gives you instant torque, which you just cannot replicate in an ICE vehicle. The acceleration times are absolutely unmatched in anything that includes an electric powertrain. I saw a couple Rimac Neveras at the Event 3 here in Columbus over the summer. We made a video of that on the channel if you want to check it out. But they are really cool, very exotic looking cars, and absolutely smashed a ton of records like Nathan said. He also mentioned the E-Ray, which is about $100,000 for a hybrid supercar. Now, you may not like me for saying the Corvette is a supercar, but truly it is, especially with the E-Ray. Has very, very good performance numbers. But something like the Acura NSX was kind of what the first reasonably priced supercar that was a hybrid, whereas the very, very first would have been the P1 LaFerrari and 918, which were all well over $1 million. But the NSX came in the mid 100,000 range and showed what a hybrid performance supercar can do.
All right, something that I want to say about electric vehicles, well, we have been kind of praising them during this entire discussion here. I am a little concerned about the future, especially our near future here with electric vehicles and how rapidly we're actually going to be able to transition the fleet of cars that are in America and likewise in the world just completely to electric. I mean, as of right now, they just do not seem to be affordable to the general public. An example of this is, say, the F-150 Lightning. You know, that had a production goal of 600,000 by the end of 2023, and Ford actually pushed that back an entire year. And so I just feel like the cost to build these and to purchase these is just, it's been a reality check to a lot of people and to a lot of manufacturers who really were pushing towards the electric market.
So on that topic, yes, electric cars are pretty expensive. They're getting expensive, and the targets they were set originally, like Ford originally set the target for the Lightning at $40,000 for the base model. That did not happen. Now, I guess just recently they cut their prices. Previously, they were up at like $60,000 starting, I think, maybe even a little bit higher than that. And now they dropped it down to about $50,000, which is still $10,000 higher than their originally announced starting price, which again, definitely turns some people away. But I think companies are just going to have to put in some effort in somehow making them reasonably affordable. And developing a car is not cheap, especially if you're developing something brand new that most companies have not had a full-fledged battery electric vehicle. And doing partnerships like Honda is doing with GM and platform commonality like a lot of these electric cars will be able to have is a good way to possibly reduce some of these costs and make these cars cheaper and make them more affordable to the general public. And that is what a lot of companies are doing. But again, it's just not as quickly happening, I don't think, as many people anticipated. And again, I think this also has to do some with the past couple of years, what we've seen since the pandemic hit and inflation is going up. I think it all plays into that. And that's definitely what's helped bring prices up and why some production slowed to begin with, and then it's all ramping back up now, and maybe the whole market just wasn't entirely ready for that. Building on this idea of electric cars costing too much for the average consumer, well, that may be the case right now. The heavy investment in development in these by car companies now is only going to make things cheaper, ideally. If you look at any technology really over time, they start out very expensive and they get cheaper over time. If you take a look at TVs, for example, 10, 15 years ago, if you wanted a brand new high definition flat screen TV, you were talking thousands of dollars. Now you can get a very high quality, much better than you could 15 years ago, flat screen 55-inch TV for under $500. And that it just shows how technology gets cheaper over time. And that is hopefully what will happen here in the automotive industry. Again, we've talked previously in this video that EVs have been around for a while and hybrid powertrains have been around for a while. While that is true, heavy investment in development and research in these technologies really hasn't. They've come and gone. They've come with the hybrid, with the Prius, and that basically is the same formula. They get a little bit better, but nothing really in terms of like long-lasting EV batteries, like the lithium-ion batteries you have now. Not a whole lot had been done in that area, specifically in the automotive area. Now, I can't speak for every single area in the technology sector, but for automotive specifically, no one has really been heavily invested in that until the last decade. And that's why I think you see so much higher costs for EVs nowadays than I think you will see here in the coming years.
Whenever you do start putting a bunch of R&D and giving a lot of funding to your engineers whenever they're trying to make a new technology, it always does get cheaper. They find stuff out. Things happen whenever you put a lot of money into stuff, is long story short. Yeah, just going along with the charging infrastructure, something that is a big problem right now is that a lot of these automotive manufacturers, when it comes to predicting a long route and where you're going to have to stop, they're pretty bad at it. In fact, the only company that is really good at saying, hey, this is probably where you're going to need to stop to charge, and we know there's a charger in this vicinity. The only company that's really good at doing that right now is Tesla. From what I've heard, a lot of other companies are just like, oh, your battery's low, let's find something now.
So to jump in on that, some companies have been doing a better job in starting to plan out your routes better. As Nathan said previously, a lot of it would be, oh, your battery's getting low, let's find you a spot to charge, rather than planning out your route in advance and giving you more of a heads up on where to stop to charge. Now, there has been a recent announcement, I think within the last couple months. I know Honda and BMW, and I think maybe 5 other companies, possibly Stellantis, I don't know off the top of my head, but a group of about 7 automotive manufacturers are joining together to build a huge charging network, one that would rival any charging network out there right now. So hopefully this infrastructure issue with charging will be solved here in the near future. And again, I think that would make EV adoption a lot more mass market. On top of that, there's a lot of companies that are switching their charging standards to, I believe it's the North American charging standard, which is Tesla's charging standard. So they will be able to use Tesla's superchargers, which again are some of the more reliable superchargers and just charging networks in general out there. So I think with these new announcements, with the combination and the collaboration of all these companies coming together to build a big charging network with all this investment being put in, hopefully it'll make for a lot better charging infrastructure and again, a lot more mass adoption from battery electric vehicles. The last thing we want to mention, be sure to leave your comments down below. Are you a fan of electric vehicles? Are you sad to see the internal combustion engine slowly fading away? Do you want to see alternative fuels like Porsche? Would you be interested in paying a lot of money for an alternative fuel if that was an option to you? Be sure to let us know your thoughts and comments down below. And Nathan, we're both engineers. He's an electrical engineer. Any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say, especially like right now where I am in school, I'm learning a lot about just like how electric motors work and that sort of thing. And so that just kind of gives me a passion for the whole electric vehicle industry. And so I really want to see electric vehicles succeed, and I want to see them as a big part of our automotive industry.
I agree. I want to see them succeed as well. And I think especially if we can clean up the grid energy as well, it could make for a much more clean mode of transportation. Now, and again, not to go back into the whole thing, but that is one of the concerns with people that people have, is that it's not that clean as people say it is. But again, I want to see electric vehicles succeed. Nathan wants to see electric vehicles succeed. Again, the more knowledge we learn, the more knowledge we will share. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. With that said, we'll see you in the next one.
Bye, guys.